fractured, unfortunate, but nonetheless proud community has found a braver, more gallant young champion.
Even when they kill me, they can never take the game from a young G.
Who lies before us, unconquered still.
He actually grew up as Tupac's little brother.
I was about to cheat him, but he my brother.
19-year-old Yafeo Fula, a member of rapper Tupac Shakur's backup group Outlaws Immortals, was found shot in the head in a public housing project in Orange, New Jersey.
The member of Tupac Shakur's entourage, a witness to the shooting that left the rapper mortally wounded, has himself been killed.
The mystery that has been around Kadafi's death was that many believed Kadafi was killed because Kadafi was the only person who could identify who the shooter who shot Tupac actually was, and that Kadafi was silenced because of his knowledge.
I saw it myself on the news. I saw Yaki Kadafi, one of the members of the Outlaws, right?
Who got himself killed, yep.
Live on TV said that he could identify who killed Tupac, and he said, "I'm telling too."
And then he got dead. Yeah, no, do you know what they told me? So I said to the cops, why don't you get that information? You know, why don't you? Well, they're not talking to us. They won't tell us anything. And I said, well, that's because you threw them all face down in the pavement, and then you pick them up and set them down. They're sitting at the curb, and you make them sit apart from each other and tell them not to talk to each other, and then you expect them to start talking to you. You know, and it was so Suge Knight was, I mean, the mentality of Suge Knight, but Suge was like, why should we help them? You know, they've got everything they need and they're not helping us. Why should we help them? And so it started out bad from the start when you treat potential witnesses. Well, they were witnesses. They were in the cars, and you treat them like that. Frank Alexander, who I got to know Frank really well before he offed himself, but I knew, you know, we knew each other. We'd see each other in green rooms if we were on TV together, or I had coffee with him once, and we talked on the phone a lot. So I knew Frank Alexander, you know, one of the bodyguards. And Frank got out of the car, and, you know, all he saw, because there were gunshots, all Frank saw was a bunch of smoke, you know, from the gunshot. You know, it was, I forget how many bullets there were, but, and then the Cadillac drove off. I can tell you also what's happened is there were mistakes made from day one. So you take the crime scene was on Flamingo Road, right? Mm-hmm. So Suge Knight leaves. So it just happens to be two bicycle cops who are just patrol cops, happened to be on the second or third floor, whatever it was, of a parking garage right next to the road. And they hear the shots, they look down, they haul down, they have their bikes with them, they haul down, and instead of calling it in, they saw the Cadillac. Instead of calling it in and saying, hey, there's a car that just left the scene, or I'll go this way, you go that way, they both turned around. Suge Knight heads out, he makes a U-ey, and he heads out, and he's all over the median, and he's getting flat tires and all of that, and makes it up to the strip until he can't move anymore. But they left the scene of the crime. Instead of one of the cops staying there and radioing and saying, you know, get backup for the bike cop who's leaving, I'm going to stay here and secure the crime scene. They heard the shots. They knew it was a crime scene. They left. They both left. And in the meantime, the Cadillac heads down Koval, and boom, nobody sees it again. Well, they saw it in a parking garage. It was because all the Crips, they stayed at Treasure Island. That's where the Cadillac was, but it left the next day. It was there that night. But they handled just the processing of the original crime scene. They didn't get back to that for like another 20 minutes to process it. So all these cars are driving over it. Who knows what witnesses were there? You know what I mean? And and because there were a lot of people out on the road, you know, pedestrians too. So there were mistakes made, and that was like number one.
Let me stop you right there, Miss Cathy, because that's important. All right, let's go back to the witnesses one more time. What happened to the young ladies that Tupac and Suge was talking to in the car when the white Cadillac pulled up and, you know, shot Tupac? Wasn't it it was some young ladies there, right?
Yeah, but they were on the other side, and they were, I mean, that's what, you know, that's what they do.
You know, did anybody ever talk to them?
Yeah, they did get those girls and later interview them. They didn't see anything, and they were just, but you know how guys are. They're just young at that age. And Tupac's standing up in the sunroof, and you know his music's blaring, the windows are down, and you know, and the girls are in, I think it was a convertible Cadillac or something, whatever it was, and I'd have to look it up, but that's just incidental, and that's the kind of stuff that people will hone in on. See, they were, you know, it must have been something very nefarious and they're involved. No, strip it down, look at the facts, bare bones, and that's what you have, and it's just such an easy case to solve.
Okay, last question about the witnesses. Back to Yaki Kadafi. Back to Yak.
Oh, yeah.
Now, here we go. Now, he makes this bold statement live on the news, right? People hear him all over the world.
When I think he told the police that too. Right.
So how do they allow him to leave Las Vegas and ultimately get killed, you know, a few weeks later in his hometown of New Jersey? How is he?
Well, they don't hold.
Witness? Huh?
Witnesses aren't held. Witnesses are given a business card and told, you know, we're going to be contacting you. Don't leave town, or don't leave where your address is in Orange, New Jersey. You know, don't. The witnesses are never held. So that unless they're under protective custody, but this wasn't even at that point. This is an early in the beginning. So yeah, it was a death sentence for him to say that, and then he gets dead. So I got word of it, and I called Orange County Police or Orange Police Department and talked to them, and before it was even out, and because I got tipped off by a detective, and that you should call and ask about it. So I did, and the call, which I found interesting, is the cop said, because I was just calling for details. How was he killed? What happened? One of the first things he said was it didn't have anything to do with Tupac's murder. And then he said that he had talked to the Metro Police Department. And I'm like, well, why would he talk to the Metro? And they were saying the same thing, had nothing to do with it, getting their stories straight, I guess. But I'm like, well, you're early into this investigation and you're already saying, how do you know? It was just, everything was just smoke and mirrors. I mean, they were, I do not believe they were telling me the truth. Because I think once you stop and look at it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I got to ask
the only eyewitness of the shooter, all Frank Alexander saw was a brown arm come out of the window. They did meet with Frank Alexander got a 6-pack, which is 6 photos. Cops came to him in L.A. 6 photos showed him, can you ID who it was? Frank couldn't because he didn't see the shooter. He just saw his arm. But Kadafi could. And I think they did give him that photo line. It was almost so they were just giving it to Frank just to be giving it to get it out of the way, because he was making it very known that he was pissed off that they hadn't interviewed him yet. So they meet him in a coffee shop, interview him, show him photos, and then that's the end of it.